طيب start. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا. Welcome everyone to another Tajweed class in this blessed month of Ramadan. And today inshallah ta'ala we are going to talk about Ahkaam, an-Nuun, as-Saakinah, wat-Tanween. And even though normally we go over the book Tajweed al-Muyassar, today I have another document ready that I'm going to use instead, which is easier to comprehend, and it's actually a document that I had prepared many years ago, almost I think 2012 maybe, Allah knows best, 2012-13, and I still find it useful. I used it to teach Tajweed back then at a mosque in the UK, and I found that document to be very useful, so we'll use that one inshallah. It's just a table that summarizes all of the rules. So the Ahkaam, an-Nuun, as-Saakinah, wat-Tanween is not really that difficult. It's pretty easy and pretty straightforward inshallah. So let's start. طيب. So like I said, we'll go over the document first, then I'll show you the table, and we'll also ask a few questions. So we'll clap, and then after that I'm gonna share a few I'm gonna make a few important points inshallah. So we'll clap. I want you to use the link that I'm gonna post in the chat. Okay, so instead of explaining everything and lecturing you, I'll try and pose questions on your clap instead, and then present the information that way when it's needed. Okay. طيب. So this chapter is called Ahkaam, an-Nuun, as-Saakinah, wat-Tanween. Okay, it's called Ahkaam, an-Nuun, as-Saakinah, wat-Tanween, which translates to the rulings of Noon, Sakin, and Tanween. So this whole chapter is specific to the rulings of Noon, Sakin, and Tanween. Okay, so first question obviously would be, what is Noon Sakin? What is Tanween? Okay, this is something that most of you should be familiar with if you've done the Quran reading course with me, or even if you haven't, I suppose you should have background knowledge on this inshallah. So let me pose that question on Wooklab first. So you can have a go at it. Bismillah. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, so the first question is, what is Noon Sakin? What is Noon Sakin? Okay, we have a few answers here. It says a silent Noon. Okay, Noon with Sukun. Somebody wrote a Noon with Sukun on top. Okay. Alright, yeah, so that's basically what it is. A Noon Sakin means Noon with Sukun. Noon Sakin means Noon with Sukun. Doesn't mean silent Noon. Noon Sakin doesn't have to be silent. It could be pronounced. I'm talking about Noon Sakin itself, linguistically. I'm not talking about the Noon Sakin when it comes to Ahkaam, an-Nuun, as-Saakinah, wat-Tanween, the specific rulings. Yes, sometimes the Noon is silent, but not always. So Noon Sakin means a Noon with Sukun. Okay, what does Sukun mean? Valid question. So what does Sukun mean? Okay, so somebody wrote a sign. No, I want a definition. Okay, it means rest. Okay, that's the linguistic meaning. Linguistic meaning of sukoon is rest. But I want to know the meaning here, as in the practical meaning when it comes to these rulings. Yes, so someone said no haraka. Someone said no sound. No, it doesn't mean no sound. It means no haraka. You make no sound extra, just a letter. I.e., you mean consonant. You don't add a vowel. So it basically means a noon that doesn't have a vowel on top or below it. No fatha, no kasra, no dhamma. Okay, that's what noon sakin means. No haraka, no fatha, kasra, or dhamma. Any letter doesn't have fatha, kasra, or dhamma, automatically, by default, has sukoon. Okay? Or someone put it over here, a lack of vowel. Nah, a lack of vowel. Okay? Don't say letter without sign, because the sukoon itself also has a sign. So you can't say letter without sign. You could have a sukoon sign, right? Type. Great. Then we said noon sakin. Ahkaam an-Nuun as-Saakinah. The rulings of noon with sukoon. Wat-Tanween, an-Tanween. Okay? So, because these are together, noon sakin and tanween, we can benefit from that the rulings are going to be the same. Okay, I'm telling you that the rulings for noon with sukoon and the rulings for tanween are going to be the exact same. There's going to be no difference. Why? Okay, so why do we treat noon sakin and tanween? Or why do we sorry, there's a mistake there in the question. Let me correct it quickly. Why do noon sakin and tanween have the same rulings? Okay, so that's the question. So why do noon sakin and tanween have the same rulings? So again, something we've already done in the Quran reading course, which you should be familiar with. Okay, those of you that are typing in the Zoom chat, I would prefer if you type inside WooClap. Okay, if you need the link, somebody post it again, please. Actually, I'll post it, no problem. There you go. Okay, because tanween also ends with n sound. Okay, because they both have noon sakin in it. Alright, tanween means it ends with a noon sakin. Okay, tanween is a noon that is pronounced but not written. Nah, ahsan. Yes, so basically, tanween basically, also called noonation, okay, basically means we add a noon with sukoon after the haraka. That is not written. We just add extra haraka that stands for a noon with sukoon. Okay, so for example, ben with noon sukoon at the end, we can write it ba fatha noon, or we can also write ba with two fathatain, or with fathatan, ben. The way it's written is different. One has two harakas, one has a noon with sukoon, but when it comes to pronunciation, it's the exact same. There's absolutely no difference. Okay, there's absolutely no difference. And this is a principle you need to know when it comes to Tajweed. Tajweed is about the things that we pronounce. It's about the sounds. It has nothing to do with what's written. Tajweed doesn't differentiate between two words because they're written differently. La. Okay? All Tajweed cares about, yes, is the sounds of the letter. What we hear, what we pronounce. Okay? Now, yes, some of the Tajweed rules are, if you like, some of the Tajweed rules are determined on linguistic basis. As in, sometimes we have a Tajweed rule, but we don't implement it because the meaning would change. Okay? Right? That's true. But it has no connection to the way we write things. So the science of writing things and handwriting and how to write these letters, called imla, that's a separate science altogether. Okay? Then we have Tajweed as a separate science. Okay? One is about the sounds. One is about the graphical representations of the sounds. Okay? Such that when you see two fathas, you know to pronounce a noon with sukoon at the end, which they call tanween. Okay? But if you write ba fatha noon, you pronounce ben. You write ba with 2 fathas, you also pronounce ben. No difference. Okay? طيب. Okay, so to summarize, we can fill in the blanks. So the way we pronounce the noon or something depends on the something that comes something it. Okay? Actually, I haven't covered this. I haven't covered this yet. I'll quickly try and explain what I mean by that, which is that the Ahkaam an-Nuun as-Saakinah wat-Tanween. Yes, these Ahkaam that we're talking about. Basically, it means that whenever you see a Noon with Sukoon, or whenever you see a Tanween, it's gonna be followed by a letter, isn't it? Obviously. Yes, unless at the end of the sentence or word you're stopping there. That's a different story. But imagine you're reading the Quran. While you're reading the Quran, you're pronouncing a Noon with Sukoon or you're pronouncing a Tanween. Whatever letter follows this Tanween and Noon Sakin, whatever letter comes after it, is gonna be put in one of 4 different categories. So whatever, all the letters in the Arabic language, we put them into 4 different categories. Okay? And whenever these letters come after a Noon with Sukoon or Tanween, the letters of that group have a specific ruling. Okay, the letters of that group have a specific ruling. How do you know what that specific ruling is? By learning the Ahkaam an-Nuun as-Saakinah wat-Tanween. We're going to group these letters together. Okay, if you see these letters, then you do this. If you see these letters after Noon Sakin and Tanween, you do this. Okay, we'll come on to that in a moment. So that's basically a summary of the whole chapter. So again, the way we pronounce the Noon Sakin or depends on the that comes something it. Okay, so fill in those blanks, inshallah. Okay. Okay. So we have the way we pronounce the noon. Okay. Continue, يعني. I'll give you some more time to answer. Okay. So we have the way we pronounce the noon or tanween depends on the letter that comes after or before it. After it. So this is wrong. Before it is wrong. Depends on the letter that comes after it. Okay. أحسنتم. بارك الله فيكم. Okay. So all of you got it right, apart from a few that said before. I think one person said the letter that comes before it. Okay. طيب ممتاز. So that's basically what it's all about. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the actual table and I'm going to present it to you. Okay. طيب. Are there any questions, by the way? Or it's pretty straightforward so far. Okay. Okay, so this is the table. Okay, and these are the rules. We have 4 rules in total. Okay, the first one, which actually I don't like to cover this one first. I'm going to cover this one after I cover this one. Okay, first one is called Idhar. Then we have Idgham, Iqlab, and Ikhfa. Okay, and these are the letters. I'll explain them in a moment. Yes, the important thing is you know what each one means. Okay, let's start with this one, Idgham. Idgham basically means that the first thing I'd like to mention is that Idgham is not something that is specific to Tajweed. It's not even something that is specific to the Arabic language. It's something that is universal, that probably all of the languages in the world have in common, which is that whenever you have two letters right after each other, pronounced right after each other, that are very close in their articulation points, you kind of merge the two letters, or you jump the first one. And when we done the Quran reading course, I gave you a perfect example, which is sit down. Sit down. How do we write sit down? Sit down. صح? So you have a T at the end of sit, and then we have a D at the beginning of down. Okay? But do we pronounce, do we say, does anyone say sit down? Does anyone speak like that? No, no one speaks like that. No native English speaker says, Muhammad, sit down. No one says that. The way we say it is, Muhammad, sit down. Sit down. Now, if you pay attention, I'm saying sit down. I'm pronouncing two D's. The first T, yes, the first T at the beginning, yes, it has been merged into the D. I'm not pronouncing it anymore. Okay, so this is called elision in the English language. Okay, and it's called idgham in Arabic. Okay, so it's not something that is specific to it's not specific to Tajweed, and it's not even specific to the Arabic language. Okay, it's just the way that we speak. It's called connected speech. When we have connected speech, we just sometimes we simplify things for our tongue, and we do this in order to make the speech flow. Okay, imagine you had to say sit down. It slows you down, doesn't it? Okay, when you say sit down, you know, it makes your speech flow. Okay, so there are letters in the Arabic language whose articulation point is close to the noon and the meme. Okay, either it has the same articulation point or it's close. Okay, so because they are close, it's difficult to say both letters right after each other. Okay, do you understand? So that's why, what do? We say, we do idgham. We do idgham. So idgham basically means jump. You jump the noon. You do not pronounce it at all. So the noon, Sakin, or the noon inside the Tanween, you jump it. You don't pronounce it at all. You completely ignore it, as if it doesn't exist. The person listening to you doesn't even hear that noon, as if the noon is not even there. Okay, so to give you some examples here, we have idgham. There are 6 letters in total: the ya, the ra, the meme, the lam, the waw, and the noon, also known as yarmaluna. Okay, yarmaluna. And what you do is you jump the noon. You do not pronounce it. Okay, so what do we say? There's something else here as well, which is you pronounce it, for some letters you pronounce it with ghunna, and some letters you don't. Okay, what is ghunna? We've done ghunna before. Ghunna is a sifa, a characteristic that belongs to the noon and the meme. And now you understand why in Tajweed there are 2 chapters dedicated to the noon with sukoon and the meme with sukoon, because the noon and the with sukoon and meme with sukoon, they have the ghunna. Okay, and this ghunna is what gives us these 4 different rulings. These 4 different rulings, for the most part, are about ghunna. Okay, so we have what we call idgham. So when it comes to idgham, you basically, some letters have ghunna and some they don't. Okay, I want you to ignore the ya and the waw for now. Those later. Yes, let's look at the ra and the lam. The ra and the lam, for example, this example over here, mir rabbihim, mir rabbihim, mir rabbihim. I didn't pronounce the noon. I didn't say min rabbihim. Neither did I say min rabbihim. So there's no ghunna, there's no noon, it's completely gone. Same thing here, for example, we have hazzam, hazzam mimma, hazzam, Hazzam. So the noon over here is gone. Instead of hazzan, I said hazzam. I joined it to the meme over here. I joined it directly to the meme. Hazzam. I didn't pronounce the noon. Or I didn't pronounce the tanween, sorry. Okay? Is that clear? So that's the first ruling. Okay? Obviously, these things will become clearer and easy to understand once we start practicing more and more, inshallah. Okay? So I started with the Idgham. The reason I started with Idgham is because I remember the first time I learned Tajweed. Yes? My teacher started with Idhar. Okay? And just 1 second, sorry. Type. What I was saying is, my teacher, the first time he taught me Tajweed, he started with Idhar. So he said to me, the rulings of Noon, Sakin and Tanween. Okay, the first ruling is that whenever you see a Noon followed by these letters, you pronounce the Noon clearly. And this caused me a big problem. I'm like, what? What else do you expect me to do? Obviously, I'm going to pronounce it clearly. Huh? So this whole Idhar business, I never truly understood it until we finished the whole chapter. That was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. So basically, it's the default. Okay, so people should actually start with these 3 rules first. Yes? And then at the end, they should be like, okay, then we have 6 letters that are the default, where you do what you're expected to do, which is just pronounce the Noon. Okay? I haven't covered Ikhfa, because Ikhfa is 15 letters. So that's why they cover that one last normally. So Ikhfa is normally called the rest, because most letters. Okay? But at least I started to begin with the Idgham, because now you understand what's meant by Idhar. When I say Idhar, you pronounce the Noon clearly, as in, you don't jump it like you do with Idgham. Okay? Maybe I should have done Iqlab as well first, which is, Iqlab is when you change the Noon. You change the Noon to a meme. So here we got 3 rulings so far. One situation, you jump the Noon. You don't pronounce it at all. The other situation, you change the Noon to a meme. Or the third one, just pronounce the Noon the way it is, the way you should do. Okay? So when it comes to the Iqlab, you change the Noon into a meme, which is when Noon Sakin is followed by a ba, or Tanween is followed by a ba. Why is that? That's because of the makhraj, or the articulation point, being close, like when you say min ba'di. Okay? When you're about to say ba and meme have the same makhraj. The ba and the meme, they have the same articulation point. So since you're already there, you might as well pronounce a meme. Okay? So you say min ba'di. Because now if I try to pronounce the Noon, min ba'di, again, it's the same problem, which is it's too close to articulation point. It's not as close as Idgham, whereby I jump the Noon completely, but there's still a bit of breaking of the flow. Okay? So, to make it easy, we say min ba'di. We pronounce a meme instead. لَإِن بَسَطَّ أَنْبِيَاءَ مِن بَشِيرٍ. Okay? عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. Okay? خَبِيرٌ بِمَا. All of these we're pronouncing a meme. So you change the Noon into what? A meme. When it comes to Idhar, the Idhar letters, they all come from the throat. These are al-huruf al-halqiyah that we've done earlier before. The hamza, the ha, the ayn, the ghoin, the ha, and the kha. They all come from the throat. And Noon comes from the tip of your tongue. So there's a massive distance between the 2 letters. So there's absolutely no difficulty or uncomfortableness in pronouncing the noon clearly. So you say وَالْمُنْخَنِقَةُ وَالْمُنْخَنِقَةُ, you pronounce the noon. وَأَيْدِيكُم مِّنْهُ, you can pronounce the noon. مِّنْ أَصْحَابِ, you can pronounce the noon. قَوْمٍ أَنْ مَخْمَصَةٍ غَيْرَ. And this one, the ghain, I found that people, if they make a mistake in idhar, it's going to be with the ghain. That's why most people make mistakes. So for example, فَسَيُنْغِضُونَ, you'll find some people saying فَسَيُنْغِضُونَ. Some people, they'll say that. So basically the ghain and the kha, I found people making mistakes in. I've never heard someone make a mistake when it comes to idhar in the ha or the ain or the ha or the hamza, because those are from the lower throat or the middle throat. But those are a bit higher up, the ghain and the kha, they're a bit close to the qaf and the kaf. So some people, they kind of like pronounce in ikhfa, which we'll talk about in a moment. Okay? When it comes to the ghain and the kha. Okay? لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من خوف. Some people say الذي أطعمهم من خوف. You'll find some people reciting it that way. لا من خوف. Okay? Idhar. Pronounce the noon properly and clearly. Okay. Then we come to the final ruling, which is ikhfa. Ikhfa, basically all the other letters. If it's not idhar, if it's not idgham, if it's not iqlab, it's going to be ikhfa. And when it comes to ikhfa, what do? We hide the noon. We do not pronounce it clearly like the idhar, neither do we jump it completely like the idgham. Okay, you might be like, how do I know, Ustad? Right? What do you mean with you don't jump it? And you something in between. How do I know where the boundaries are? Well, it's pretty easy. Let's look at idhar, idgham, and ikhfa. What are the differences? Okay? What you need to know is that the meme and the noon have two articulation points. We've covered that before. You have the tip of the tongue or your lips for the noon and the meme. And we also have the khayshum, the ghunna, which comes from your nasal passage. The ghunna. Okay? So the noon and the meme have two articulation points. Okay? So these three rulings are related to those two articulation points. When it comes to idhar, we pronounce and we articulate from both articulation points, both of them. So we say min khawfin. Our tongue is on the top of our palate, min, and we have the ghunna, khawfin. Min khawfin. We have both. That's idhar. Okay? Idgham, we have none of them. Okay? So idhar, both articulation points. Idgham, none of the articulation points. Okay? Alright? So we have idhar min khawfin, idgham mir rabbika, mir rabbika, mir rabbika. There's no idgham, and neither is my tongue steady on the articulation point of the noon. Rather, my tongue is at the articulation point of the ra. Mir rabbika. Milladun, milladun, milladun. Okay? In other words, anyone listening to me saying mir rabbika or milladun, if they don't know the Arabic language, someone knows the Arabic language, he knows that you've done idgham. Because he knows mir rabbika is not a word. He knows it's min rabbika. They know that because they know the language. But someone who doesn't know the Arabic language, if you asked him, did this person pronounce a noon? He will say to you, no. He will say to you, no, I didn't hear a noon at all. Okay? So that's idgham. How about ikhfa? Now ikhfa, basically, you don't pronounce the noon from its normal articulation point, which is putting your tongue on the top of your palate. Here, underneath your palate. La. Your tongue instead goes to the letter that comes after the noon's place. So for example, anfusakum, anfusakum. So here we have anfusakum, sah? As you can see, my tongue and my two front teeth are here on my lips. Okay, getting ready to pronounce the fa. Okay, instead of putting my tongue here on my palate to say no, I don't say anfusakum. My tongue doesn't go to the articulation point for the noon. Rather, I get ready to pronounce the fa. However, you can feel there's a noon there. Okay, so anfusakum is different from afusakum. Afusakum would be idgham. Afusakum, there's no noon. But here when I say anfusakum, you're like, wait a minute, there's something hiding there. There's a letter hiding there. Okay, what letter is that? Oh, that letter is a noon. How do you know that letter is a noon? Because I can hear the idgham. Sorry, I can hear the ghunna, which belongs to the noon. So the ghunna kind of like gives it away that the noon is hiding there. So imagine noon is playing hide and seek, right? But let's say he has a massive tail, right? And the tail is sticking out of the door. Yes, you're like, okay, something is hiding there. Okay, even though I can't see who it is, I know it's noon because noon has a long tail. Okay, and I can see the tail. So there's something that belongs to the noon that's still, hearable, if you like, which is the ghunna. That's why they called it Ikhfa. Noon is trying to hide, but it's not really good at it. Okay, the ghunna is still there. So أنفسكم. So let's look at the examples. وأنتم من دينكم. As you can see, my tongue is going to the place for the dal, getting ready to pronounce the dal, but I still have the ghunna. عنكم شيء قدير. شيء. You see, my tongue has gone to the qaf, but the ghunna is there. شيء قدير قوما جبارين, and so on and so forth. Okay, is that so far? Is that clear? The difference between idhar, idgham and ikhfa. Now there's a major issue. There's one big problem which I'm going to address in a moment, inshallah. For those of you that have done tajweed before, there's a massive question in your mind based on what I've said so far, the difference between idhar, idgham and ikhfa. Some of you will be like, wait a minute, there's a problem here, and I'm going to address that problem in a moment, inshallah. We're going to get a little bit nerdy. Okay, but so far, for those of you that haven't done tajweed before, or those of you that haven't noticed the major problem, is everything clear? Okay, now I'll share the diagram, inshallah. طيب, okay, now inshallah I'm gonna explain something. I want you to buckle up, right? It's gonna be a little bit confusing if you've never heard this before, and this what I'm going to share with you today is very unconventional. Okay, and it's probably something even those of you that have done tajweed you've never heard of before, but to be honest, it's something that's been bothering me since I was teaching this particular course almost 9 years ago. It was something that was on my mind. I was trying to find an answer to. I even asked the different mashayikh that I was learning tajweed from, the one I've got the ijazah from, and some other guy I was reading to as well. I tried and put the question across to them. They didn't really manage to give me an answer. But subhanallah, yesterday I made a big breakthrough, alhamdulillah, and I actually found that the scholars of tajweed, they actually differed on this particular mas'ala, and it's there in the books. I just didn't know how to search for it, but alhamdulillah, yesterday I managed to find it, and I'm confident to share this with you today because it's not something now that is from me. For me, even though it's something that bothered me 9 years ago, and I thought like something has to be wrong, this can't be right, it's not something I could have shared because I'm not an expert in tajweed to that level whereby I can come up with new opinions or the like. But alhamdulillah, yesterday I can't share with you the happiness that I felt when I actually found that the scholars of tajweed in the past, the a'imma of tajweed in the past, such as Abu Amr al-Dani and as-Sakhawi, actually had this opinion, and other than them, they actually had this opinion. So alhamdulillah, I'm going to share that opinion with you today, and that is gonna clear up a lot of confusion. Okay, and also with this opinion, the puzzle is gonna be complete. Okay, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the Ahkaam an-Nuun as-Saakinah wat-Tanween. I know some of you read the Tajweed, those Tajweed books, the color-coded Tajweed books. But let me tell you this. The Mus'haf, the normal Mus'haf that you have, right? This is actually a Tajweed one, so this is actually a Tafsir one, sorry. But this Mus'haf, the Mus'haf al-Madina, yes, the normal Medina Mus'haf that you have, right? It already has signs for these rulings embedded inside the Mus'haf. You don't need no colors, you don't need anything. Okay? There are hints inside the Mus'haf for every single rule from the rules of Ahkaam an-Nuun as-Saakinah wat-Tanween. Also Mim as-Saakinah wat-Tanween. Okay? The way it's written is different for each hukum. And that's actually when I was explaining that to the students, these signs inside the Mus'haf, there was one major problem. There was one thing, one anomaly that didn't fit in. But alhamdulillah, based on the opinion, or if you like, the hunch that I had, based on the opinion that the scholars have differed on, and some of the imams, they have the opinion, that opinion will clear up the confusion. So what do I mean by that? Let me explain. طيب. And I think really it's a big challenge trying to explain this in an easy way. Okay, let me explain to you first what the problem is, right? Let me tell you what the issue is. Perhaps that will clear things up. Let's go back to our diagram. Here we have hints. Okay, we have hints. How do you look at your Mus'haf? If any of you have a Mus'haf at home, I want you to get it, right? How can you find out if a letter, if the Noon, Sakin or Tanween should be Idhar or Idgham or Ikhfa or Iqlab just by looking at the Mus'haf? Okay, this is how you'll find out. The Noon, when it comes to the Idgham, it has a Sukun sign. The Noon has a Sukun sign. Okay, whereas that's for Idhar. Whereas for Idgham and in Ikhfa it doesn't. Okay, first let's first get rid of the Iqlab. Iqlab has a small meme sign, we're done with it, khalas. Iqlab you will never miss in the Mus'haf. You see this meme, that's Iqlab. This small meme over here, that's Iqlab. Okay, so Iqlab, let's put it aside. We have Idhar, Idgham and Ikhfa, these three things. How do you recognize them? By looking at the Mus'haf. Okay, so Idhar has a Sukun sign. Okay, Ikhfa doesn't. So let me show you what I mean by that. Look here. This is Idhar, isn't it? Can you see the Sukun sign on top? That means Idhar. Pronounce the Noon. Okay, let's go to the Ikhfa. Can you see a Sukun sign here? No, you can't. Okay, do you see the difference? Again, can you see the Sukun sign here? Idhar. How about this one? Can you see a Sukun sign? No. So if you can't see a Sukun sign, then it's Ikhfa. If you can, it's Idhar. Okay? Okay, that's when it comes to the Noon. How about the Tanween? Okay, when it comes to the Tanween, then when it comes to the Idhar, you'll find that the Tanween is right on top of each other. You see, this Tanween over here is right on top of each other. The Fatha and the Kasratain. But here, as you can find, is diagonal. Can you see that? They're not on top of each other. Can you see the Tanween over here? I can't select it, sorry. The Tanween over here, you can see it's not on top of each other. It's kind of like diagonally, it's overlapping like a little bit, but not completely. Same thing here. Can you see that? So contrast between that and this, where the Tanween is right on top of each other. That's the difference between Idhar and Ikhfa when it comes to the Tanween. The only thing that's left is the two Dhammas. The two Dhammas, when it's Idhar, is going to have a hood. You see this hood over here? That's Idhar. It has a hood. Whereas when it comes to the, if you like the, I don't have an example here to show you for Ikhfa, but you're just going to look, it's going to be two Tanweens like that, two Tanweens like this. Okay, so whenever you see the Tanween with a hood, it's Idhar. Whenever you see two Tanween, like two Dhammas, that's Ikhfa. Is that clear so far? Okay, Alhamdulillah. Beautiful. Okay, now, final question. How about Idgham? What's the sign for Idgham? Okay, the sign for Idgham is Shadda. Finished. The sign for idgham is shaddah. Whenever you have a noon or tanween followed by shaddah, that's idgham. Two fathas, shaddah, idgham. Two fathas, shaddah, idgham. Now there's one anomaly here, and that's where the problem is. Apart from the waw and the ya. That's what stuck with me. It's like, why? Why not the waw? Why not the ya? Why is there no shadda on the waw and the ya? Because this is breaking up. Basically, this is a missing part of the puzzle. Do you understand, brothers and sisters? Are you with me? Okay. If the waw and the ya had a shadda after the tanween, that would be full circle. Khalas. The mushaf would have all of the rules for noon, sakin, and tanween. It would be there. But there's one problem. The waw, look here, naqiban waqa. There's no shadda here. Sanatay, there's no shadda here. That's a problem. Okay? That was my question basically. Why is there no shadda? Okay, that's one thing. Then I came to another conclusion, which is even a bigger problem. Which is, remember when we said idhar, you pronounce the noon from its place and the ghunnah. Ikhfa, you don't pronounce the noon from its place, but the ghunnah is still there. Idgham, you completely allied one letter into the other. Okay? And this is what idgham or elision means in all languages. The definition of idgham, my dear brothers and sisters, is that the first letter is completely lost. Is completely disappears. That's what idgham means. Okay? And this is what idgham should be. Okay? But then again, waw and ya cause problems when it comes to this. Why? Because if we look at the ra and the lam, there is no idgham. Mir rabbika, min ladun. There's absolutely no idgham there. Okay? Okay, how about the mim and the noon? One might argue, well, Ustad, what's your problem with the ya and the waw? The mim and the noon also have ghunnah. Because the scholars, they say idgham is of two types. They say idgham bi ghunnah and idgham without ghunnah. Okay, so yes, ra and lam don't have ghunnah. I get you. That's complete elision. But the mim and the noon do have ghunnah, don't they? So when we say mimma, when we say, for example here, hazzam mimma, there's still a ghunnah there. So Ustad, why is your problem with the ya and the waw only? Do you know why? Because the ghunnah in hazzam mimma is not the ghunnah of the tanween. It's not the ghunnah of the noon. It's the ghunnah that belongs to the mim itself. Mim itself is a letter with ghunnah. Do you get me? Okay? So when it comes to the mim and the noon being idgham with ghunnah, it makes sense because the noon and the mim that follow the tanween or follow the noon sakin ghunnah themselves, and they are the ghunnah that we are actually pronouncing. Okay? Is that clear? So that means mim and noon are not a problem. And they actually mention that. It's mentioned in the Tajweed al-Muyassar as well. They actually make that point when it comes to the idgham. Okay? And they mention that, and I'll show you in a moment inshallah. They mention in Tajweed al-Muyassar that the ghunnah that comes with mim and noon is not the ghunnah of the tanween or the noon sakin, is the ghunnah of the mim and the noon that follow it. So that still leaves us with the problem of the waw and the ya. Why do the waw and the ya have a ghunnah? Why? If this is idgham, and idgham means to allied, and idgham means to completely get rid of the letter, waw and ya are not two letters that have a ghunnah. So why is it when we say sanatay yati, there's a ghunnah there? Why? Doesn't that ghunnah belong to the noon? In other words, what's the difference between the waw and the ya and the letters of ikhfa? That's basically the crux of the matter. That's basically the question. Okay? That's a question for which I was looking for the answer to this question for almost 9 years. Alhamdulillah, I found it yesterday. Okay? What's the difference between waw and ya and the letters of ikhfa? Now when it comes to the mushaf, there's no difference. Wallahi, there's no difference. Look at this. Qawman jabbarina sanatan yatihuna is the exact same. The tanween is diagonal. diagonal, they're not on top of each other. There's no shadda here, there's no shadda here. You know, these two are the same. When it comes to our pronunciation, قَوْمًا جَبَّارِينَ سَنَةً يَتِيهُونَ, there's no difference. So yes, I was actually questioning this, something which obviously it's almost consensus when it comes to the scholars in this day and age, right? But I'm happy to have found out that it wasn't consensus always. Yes, the ya and waw, yes, there are scholars that hold that the ya and waw are actually ikhfa letters and not idgham letters. They say ya and waw do not belong here. The letters of idgham are 4: lam, ra, mim, and nun. Ya and waw, there's no difference when it comes to ya and waw and what? The letters of ikhfa. Now the contemporary scholars, they basically said idgham is of 2 levels. We have idgham kamil, a complete idgham, and we have idgham naqis, a deficient idgham. So then they called the waw and the ya to be deficient idghams. Okay? They said this is a deficient idgham. Why did they say it's a deficient idgham? Because it's clear. The ghunna is still there. The ghunna is still there. That's why they said it's a deficient idgham. Idgham naqis. So I went looking yesterday. What's the difference between idgham naqis and ikhfa? Okay? Really, those that say that make a difference, they basically say that the difference is that there is a small shadda, like, you know, the real shadda whereby we join 2 things is not there. But this one, when we say sanatan yatihuna, is slightly longer or slightly more stressed than qawman jabbarina, which I don't see the difference. And alhamdulillah, like I said, many scholars of the past, they didn't see a difference. And I'm going to share with you those statements, because this is not a statement I want to be ascribed to me. This is not my hukum, this is not my opinion. I've got absolutely no place in the equation. لا محل لي من الإعراب. I've got no place in this occasion. I'm just going to share with you what these A'imma of Tajweed have said, such as Abu Amr ad-Dani and Sakhawi, and then it's for you to choose what opinion is right. So yes, I didn't share this for 9 years because it wasn't my place, but alhamdulillah, today I'm happy to share this with you by ascribing it back to those Imams of the Tajweed, such that if anybody says to you, why do you say idgham letters are 4 letters, not 6 letters? Then you can refer them back to the statement of Abu Amr al-Dani and the statement of Sakhawi, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. Is that clear? Is this beyond this? Did I get a bit too nerdy here? Or that makes sense? Let me know if any of you hasn't understood that, and if you need further clarification before I share the scholar's statement, inshallah. Okay, so okay, let's read then what Abu Amr al-Dani and as-Sakhawi said. Okay, let's read their statements, inshallah. Which basically is just exactly the same thing that I just said, يعني. But then I'm gonna share with you their exact same wordings. Okay. The first point, only 2 separate words. I'll cover that later. But here is where they mention in Tajweed al-Muyassar that it's idghams of 2 levels. Okay. So they say over here, ويسمى الإدغام بغنة إدغاما ناقصا. They say idgham بغنة is a deficient idgham. Okay, لذهاب الحرف وهو النون أو التنوين وبقاء الصفة. Why do they call it deficient idgham? Because the noon or tanween is gone, the actual articulation point, but the صفة, the characteristic of غنة is still there. فيكون الإدغام غير مستقبل التشديد. So we don't need a شدة, the شدة. Okay. والذي عليه الجمهور أنه إنما يكون ناقصا إذا أدغمت النون الساكنة التنوين في الواو أو الياء. And they mentioned that most scholars hold that is only idgham naqis when the idgham relates to the waw and the ya only. Okay. As far as the mim and the noon are concerned, فإن الإدغام حينئذ يكون كاملا. When it comes to mim and noon, then that's the complete idgham. Why? لأن في كل من المدغم والمدغم فيه غنة. Why? Because the noon with sukun and the tanween has a غنة, and the noon or mim that follow it also have a غنة. فإذا ذهبت غنة المدغم بالإدغام بقيت غنة المدغم فيه فالتشديد مستكمل. So even if you got rid of the idgham that belongs to the noon with sukun or tanween that come first, we still have the idgham. Sorry, if we get rid of the ghunnah that's in the noon and the tanween that come first, we still have the ghunnah in the noon and the meme that follow it. Okay, so we're only left with the waw and the ya being a problem, right? Only the waw and the ya are now called idgham naqis. And I said to you, some scholars they say there is no difference between idgham naqis and ikhfa, they are the exact same thing. Okay, so let's check that out. This is the other opinion. Okay, واختلفوا في تسمية الإدغام بغنة فيهما أي الواو والياء. So before we go to their statements, let's compare the two definitions for إدغام ناقص and إخفاء in this Tajweed al-Muyassar, so that you see that the definitions are actually talking about the two same things. Okay, so here they mentioned that, what did they say? ذهاب الحرف وبقاء الصفة. The articulation of the actual harf, the noon, and is gone. We still have the صفة, the characteristic. But look when they talk about إخفاء. إخفاء, what's إخفاء? إخفاء is النطق بالحرف بصفة بين الإظهار والإدغام عاريا عن التشديد مع بقاء الغنة في الحرف الأول. Okay, so they say إخفاء is that we don't pronounce the letter with تشديد, as in with the shadda, while we still have the غنة. So it's the same thing. It's basically the same thing. If you look at these two definitions, they're just very similar. Let's go on to the statements of these scholars. Abu Amr al-Naddani, this is what he said basically. Let me make it bigger. So this is, I've taken certain parts of his statement, not the full statement. He said, فَمَنْ أَبْقَى غُنَّةَ النُّونِ أو التنوين مع الإدغام لم يكن ذلك إدغاما صحيحا في مذهبه. Okay, whoever leaves the noon, whoever leaves the غنة when it comes to the tanween, then that's not a true إدغام, he says. لأن الإدغام الصحيح ألا يبقي فيه من الحرف المدغم أثرا. Because true إدغام, he says, is that none of the letter that has been elided, that none of its trace is left. No trace of it is left. That letter needs to completely disappear. Okay? إذ كان أو إذا كان لفظه ينقلب إلى لفظ المدغم فيه ويصير مخرجه من مخرجه بل هو في الحقيقة كالإخفاء. He says rather this is nothing but إخفاء, he says. This is nothing but إخفاء الذي يمتنع فيه الحرف من القلب لظهور صوت المدغم وهو الغنة. Which إخفاء is a letter which we can't completely do إدغام because of the fact that the غنة is still left. Okay? ألا ترى أن من أدغم النون والتنوين ولم يبغ غنتهما قلبهما حرفا خالصا من غير جنسي. Okay, let's go to Sakhawi's statement as well. This is what as-Sakhawi said. قال السخاوي, he says اعلم أن حقيقة ذلك في الواو والياء إخفاء. Know that the reality when it comes to the واو and ya, it's an إخفاء. It's not إدغام. لا إدغام, it's not إدغام. وإنما يقولون له إدغام مجاز. They only call it figuratively. They call it إدغام just figuratively. It's not really إدغام. وهو في الحقيقة إخفاء. In reality is إخفاء. على مذهب من يبين الغنة. On the مذهب of the one who pronounces the غنة. لأن ظهور الغنة يمنع تمحض الإدغام. لأن طيب, why did he say on the مذهب of the one who pronounces the غنة? That brings us to another very important point, which is the waw and ya. Can they actually exist? Can they actually be idgham? The answer is yes. There's a qira'ah by Khalaf, okay, where the waw and ya are actually pronounced without ghunnah. They are true idgham. So the way he pronounces it in that qira'ah is miyom, 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 with absolutely no ghunnah. Miwaq, miwaq, miwaq. Instead of miwaq, in that qira'ah it is miwaq, miwaq. Okay? So I don't know, Allahu A'lam, maybe it's some kind of tadakhul of the different qira'at, that the waw and ya were considered idgham. Because of the fact that it's actually a qira'ah where the waw and ya really are an idgham. But when it comes to Hafs and Asim, the one that we read with, the waw and ya are not a full idgham. The waw and ya, they still have the ghunnah. Okay? Those qira'ahs where the waw and ya do not retain the ghunnah, in that qira'ah we say yes, absolutely, the waw and ya, this is idgham. Okay? And I'm going to play for you, inshallah, someone who's actually going to pronounce that on YouTube. I found a clip, someone who's actually explaining that some people, they make that mistake when they're reading that particular qira'ah. Okay? And I want you to pay attention to that. He probably pronounces it better than me. So let me share that with you. Okay, I don't know this guy, okay, but we just want to listen to how he's pronouncing it, okay? He makes this point. He's obviously explaining exactly what I've just said, where he mentions that the qira'ah of Khalaf and Hamza, he mentions that the noon and when the ya and waw are pronounced as idgham, you shouldn't leave the ghunnah there. The ghunnah should disappear. So he's basically recording this video for those who read the qira'ah of Khalaf and Hamza. He's explaining to them, do not read the waw and ya the way they do with the normal qira'ah, Hafs and Amr, the widespread qira'ah. Rather, if you're doing this qira'ah, you can't pronounce the ghunnah. And that's what he's explaining here. Okay? So let's listen to that. Assalamu alaikum. And I lost yeah, no, the Zoom just it just crashed. Okay? طيب. So let me share this with you, this video. Okay? I want you to pay attention to the way he's pronouncing it.
من عباده على من يشاء بالروح من أمره على من يشاء من عباده أننذر الخطأ على من يشاء من عباده.
So he's saying this is khata. Khata, if you're reading the qira'ah or the reading of Khalaf and Hamza, it's wrong for you to pronounce it with idgham. So how do you pronounce it? What's the correct way? He's going to pronounce the correct way now.
الصواب على من يشاء من عباده. ما الذي فعلناه؟ أذهبنا ذات وصفة النون وشددنا الياء تشديدا تاما فالإدغام.
So he said, what did we do? He said we got rid of the noon and its sifa, its characteristic, which is the ghunnah. We done a complete tashdid. That's how it should be pronounced in the qira'ah of Hamza and Khalaf, Khalaf and Hamza. In that qira'ah, we can say that the waw and ya are from the letters of idgham. But when it comes to qira'ah that we do, then like I've showed you, Abu Amr al-Dani and Sakhawi, they hold that it's not Idgham. This is Ikhfa. Okay?
إدغام
He's going to give another example as well.
وليس إدغاما ناقصا. الإدغام الكامل ذهاب أثر وصفة الحرف المدغم. أن أنذروا أنه لا وات والأرض بالحق تعالين والأنعام خلقها لكم فيها دفء ومنافع ومنها تاكلون.
Now he's going to explain again what the right way is and what the wrong way is. This example now is with the waw. The previous one was with the ya.
الخطأ لكم فيها دفء ومنافع.
For them is khata. The one that reads khalaf an hamza. With ghunna is khata. So what's the way it should be khalaf an hamza? He's going to explain that now.
ومنافع. ماذا فعلنا هنا؟ الذي فعلناه أننا أبقينا الغنة الأصلية التي في التنوين الساكن، والصحيح ذهاب غنة التنوين رأسا وتشديد الحرف التالي دفء ومنافع.
دفء ومنافع. That's how it should be khalaf an hamza, which is a true idgham.
دفء وليس دفء.
دفء not دفء. Okay? طيب. I hope that's clear inshallah. So that could be a reason why, Allahu Alam, I don't know. But nevertheless, I go by that opinion. Whoever wants to join me, you're welcome, inshallah. I'll share with you the exact references, inshallah, for these statements of Abu Amr, al-Dani and Sakhawi. So you can refer back to it, inshallah, if needed. One last point I'd love to make is that when it comes to idgham, it's only idgham when the noon, sakin and tanween and the following letter are in two separate words. Okay? If they are in the same word, we can't do idgham. And the reason for that is if we do idgham in the middle of a word, then that word would change. It would be a different word. The meaning of the word would change. Okay? So we can only do it in two separate words. Okay, so do we have places in the Quran where we have noon followed by a letter from the letters of idgham such that we do idhar within the same word? Because that's what we should do. If it's in the same word, then we don't do idgham. Okay? Has that happened? Yes? Then yes, only in 4 words. Only in 4 words in the Quran do you find the letters of idgham following the noon with sukoon. طبعا not tanween. That's another point as well. Tanween only ever happens at the end of a word. Okay? So when it comes to tanween, all of the rulings of Ahkaam al-Tanween, all of them, yes, then they always take place in 2 separate words. Because tanween can only be at the end of a word. So it's going to be followed by another word. That following word, whichever letter it starts with, will tell us what hukum to pronounce. But when it comes to the noon, noon could be in the middle of a word as well, followed by any of those letters. So if there are 4 situations whereby it's followed by a letter from the letters of idgham, based on what? Based on the fact that the ya and the waw are from the letters of idgham. But when it comes to what we've mentioned today, then that's not even the case. They would be from the letters of ikhfa. Okay? So we have bunyanun. Bunyanun. Okay? And dunya. Dunya. Qinwan. And sinwan. Those 4 places. Those 4 words. Dunya, bunyan, qinwan, sinwan. These 4 situations with place. Bunyan, sinwan, dunya, qinwan. Okay? And also, when it comes to 2 separate words, when it comes to the letters that are muqatta. Yasin. There's a noon at the end. Yasin. Okay? We can't say Yasin wal Quran. La. We don't do idgham over here, or ikhfa, whatever you want to call it, right? Instead, you pronounce the noon in Yasin properly, you stop, and then you say wal Quran. Okay? Yasin wal Quran al Hakim. Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun. Okay? طيب. I think that's it, inshallah, for today. I'll share the table with you. Now I'm going to give you a quick test. Let's see the first one from amongst you that can find it. The table, there's a mistake in the table, right? There's one place, the examples that I give in the table, examples of if you like, of idhar. No, the examples of idgham, there's one mistake. There's one mistake there. Let's find out which one of you is the first one that can find it. Okay? So let me share the screen. Here, there's a mistake. One of these examples is not actually idgham, based on the opinion that waw and ya obviously are included. One example here has nothing to do with the Ahkaam an-Nuun, as-Saakinah, wat-Tanween. If you look at the two words or the one word, you won't find a Noon Sakin followed by Tanween, or followed by a letter, or a Tanween followed by a letter. Who knows which one it is? Who knows which one it is? Over here, huh? This line over here. Who can find it? The third. Naam, ahsant. Wan-Natiha. Yes, there is no Ahkaam Noon Sakin Tanween over here. Mafi. We have a Noon with Shadda over here, okay. But where's the Noon with Sukoon? Nothing. Where is the Tanween? There's no Tanween. Okay, so you can't say wan-Natiha is Idgham. La, it's not Idgham. Okay. Well, linguistically it's Idgham, but not in Tajweed. Linguistically it's Idgham in a sense that we done Idgham in a sense that we jumped the lam over here. That's also Idgham. Okay, and there's a whole chapter in Tajweed about Idgham. Idgham is not something specific to Noon Sakin and Tanween or Mim. La. For example, Alam nakhlukum min ma'in mahin. Nakhlukum. Which letter did I pronounce? I pronounced a kaf. But it's actually nakhlukum. There's a qaf there, but that qaf has been completely jumped. We jumped to the kaf. Nakhlukum. Why? Because qaf and kaf are too close to each other. You can't pronounce both of them at the same time. You can't say nakhluqukum. It doesn't sound right. Do you understand? Waddat ta'ifatun. Waddat ta'ifatun. Waddat. I pronounced the ta. Waddat ta. But there's actually a ta over there. If it wasn't for idgham, we would have said waddat ta'ifatun. Waddat ta'ifatun. Same as sit down. Would have been sit down. Okay? La, we do idgham. Waddat ta'ifatun. So idgham is not specific to Noon Sakin and Tanween. Idgham is a universal rule. Whenever you have two letters that are coming from the same articulation point or that are too close to each other, we jump the first one. And how do we achieve that in the Arabic script? By way of the shadda. Shadda is the king here. Shadda is what enables idgham. There is no idgham without shadda. Take that as a principle. There is no idgham without shadda. And that's why I had a big problem with the waw and the ya being part of idgham. Because there's no other situation where you have an idgham without a shadda. It doesn't happen. Shadda is the tool used to do idgham. So even all of the Shamsiyya letters that you learn as Ahkaam, letters of Shamsiyya, such as Ash-Shams and here wan-Natiha, it's nothing but idgham. All the Shamsiyya rules are basically idgham rules. That's what they are. That's basically what they are. And we've explained this in the Quran reading course as well. That Shamsiyya and Qamariyya, you don't need to memorize 14 different letters. All you need to look out for is this shadda. Whenever you see a shadda, my dear brothers and sisters, and you're reading the Quran, jump to it straight away. That's why we call it jump. That's why we call it jump. If you see a shadda, jump to it. Whatever vowel that you have, jump onto the shadda and connect with the shadda. And no matter what's in between, you can jump it. You can forget it. Don't worry about it. So for example, fis samawati. Fis samawati, how many letters are we jumping? We're jumping the ya, which is the med in fi. We're jumping the lam as well in al-samawati. We're jumping those two letters and we're jumping to the scene that has a shadda. We're saying fis samawati. We're not saying fil samawati. Just imagine a language that sounded like that. Fil samawati. Fil samawati. Sounds ridiculous. Okay? Fis samawati. So that the speech can flow. Okay? How do we achieve that? How do you know it's fis samawati and not fil samawati? Is that because you've memorized all the letters of Shamsiyya and Qamariya and you know that Sin is from the letters of Shamsiyya, so we have to... La. You know that because there's a shadda on the Sin. Simple. You see a shadda, you jump to it. Okay? هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد. بارك الله فيكم. Any questions? حياكم الله وبياكم. طيب, I'll share that diagram with you, but just keep in mind when نطيحة is wrong. Okay? Keep that in mind. الله يحفظك. بارك فيكم. جزاكم الله خير. One thing I need to share, by the way, it's an important thing, which is that next week there's no lesson. Inshallah, next week I'm traveling to Mecca. Inshallah ta'ala. And then I'll be back maybe 8 days later or 7 days later, inshallah, just before Eid. So based on that, next week I'm traveling. The week after is probably going to be last 10 nights. Mostly going to be up in the night, probably sleeping during the day. So, and as you can see, obviously as well, the attendance has taken a great hit in Ramadan because of the time differences, and we had to change the timing as well. So I think inshallah the best way forward is to pause classes. Until after Ramadan, because we can't teach next week or the week after, so that inshallah after Ramadan everybody can join us once again and we can have full attendance, and we'll take it from there inshallah. We'll continue with the workshop. We'll have the workshop tomorrow. We'll continue submitting assignments for next week as well, inshallah, specifically the sisters as well. But next week inshallah there's no lecture and there's no workshop, and the week after that is Eid preparations, and we'll continue after Ramadan inshallah. Obviously it was a great opportunity to do these classes inside Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, I hope a lot of you benefited from the workshops and practicing and submitting your assignments and stuff, and I hope you can benefit from what you've learned so far as well in your recitations. But we're gonna have to continue after Ramadan inshallah. So I hope that's clear everyone inshallah. Okay? طيب. Any other questions? I'll share my email. This is a shared inbox, by the way. I do have sometimes some people helping me with the influx, specifically when the influx gets big. Then I have some members of the team that filter the emails for me. So keep in mind, that's not my personal email. admin@binabdulwali.com. That's in shared inbox. Inshallah, where you can submit whatever concerns or questions or feedback that you have. Okay. Allah yahfadak akhi, jazakallah khair for the encouraging words. Okay. Yes, definitely, inshallah. Remember all of you, my du'as, inshallah, when I go to Mecca. I hope I get there safely and get back safely, inshallah. May Allah accept from us all our righteous deeds and fasting in this blessed month. May He give us tawfiq to be from Ahl al-Quran, those who act upon it. First and foremost, those who recited Ana al-Layl, Atraf al-Nahar, those who recited throughout the night and the day and contemplate over its meanings. May Allah make us from those people, Ahlullahi wa Khasatuhu, Allah's special ones on the Day of Judgment. Ameen ya Rabb. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.